You always think the worst part of a breakup is when they leave. You picture the slam of the door, the fights, the ugly crying in the middle of the night. But sometimes, it's not the ending that breaks you. It's what happens after, when people start telling lies about your child. My name is Alara Moore, and if you asked anyone who really knows me, they'd say I'm quiet, a little stubborn, and maybe too trusting for my own good. I loved Jason Carter with everything I had. He was charming, quick-witted, the kind of guy who could light up a whole room. And for a while, I believed he loved me too. But after I gave birth to our son, Liam, everything changed. Jason got cold, distant. One day, he just stopped coming home. And eventually, he left for good. I thought the worst was over. I thought I'd buried that part of my life. Until last Saturday. It was supposed to be a simple afternoon. Liam and I were at Jason's parents' house, Linda and Frank Carter, for a family barbecue they insisted we come to, for Liam's sake. I'll be honest, I didn't want to go. Linda always looked at me like I was a mistake Jason couldn't scrub clean, but Liam deserved to know his grandparents, even if they didn't make it easy. And just when I thought it couldn't get more uncomfortable, there she was, Brittany Hale, Jason's new girlfriend, blonde, perfect, and mean, in a way that was always dressed up with a fake smile. She grabbed Jason's arm like I might steal him back if she let go for even a second. It was when Liam was playing near the patio that it all happened. Linda, sipping wine, leaned over and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, you can't even prove the baby is Jason's." I felt like the ground cracked under my feet. I opened my mouth, stunned, but before I could say anything, Brittany burst out laughing. She tossed her hair over her shoulder and smirked. "He's too smart to be her kid." Honestly, it's obvious. I could feel every eye on me. Jason said nothing, just looked away, pretending he didn't hear. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab Liam and leave. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw Liam walking toward me. He wasn't smiling. His little hands were trembling, clutching something. A crumpled envelope. He stood in front of me, his voice shaking, and said, "Mom, Dad told me to give this to you," when they started lying again. The whole backyard froze. Even Brittany's smug little grin faltered. I dropped to my knees, level with Liam, and took the envelope from his hand. It was old and worn, like he'd been carrying it around for a while, waiting for this moment. For a second, I couldn't move. I just stared at it, feeling this strange electric buzzing in my ears. I knew, whatever was inside this envelope, it was going to change everything. You see, people think strength looks like yelling, throwing things, standing tall and fearless. But sometimes, strength is a little boy's shaky voice. Sometimes strength is holding on when the world is trying to pull you apart. I took a deep breath, smoothed out the paper inside, and started to read. After Jason left, the world felt like it had cracked wide open. There's this moment they don't tell you about, when you're sitting on the floor, surrounded by the pieces of a life you thought you were building together, realizing you're the only one left to pick them up. I still remember holding Liam in my arms, barely a few weeks old, while staring at the front door Jason had walked out of for the last time. No calls, no apologies, just silence. But silence has a funny way of teaching you things. It taught me that love isn't about words, it's about showing up. And if Jason wasn't going to show up for Liam, then I was going to show up twice as hard. So I got a job at a small accounting firm in town. The hours were long and the pay wasn't great, but it kept food on the table and a roof over our heads. I leaned hard on the two people who never made me feel like a burden. My mom, Marie Moore, who lived a few miles away and spoiled Liam with homemade cookies and bedtime stories, and my younger brother, Caleb, who treated Liam like a little sidekick, teaching him to ride a bike and sneaking him candy when I wasn't looking. It wasn't easy. There were nights I sat alone at the kitchen table, bills spread out like a battlefield, wondering if I was enough, wondering if Liam would grow up feeling half empty because his father chose to be a stranger. But Liam, he was my light, bright, curious, always asking questions about how the world worked. He had this spark, this unstoppable eagerness to learn and explore, that sometimes made my chest ache with pride and fear all at once. And every time I worried about the future, he'd come running into the room, laughing about some bug he'd found outside or showing me a drawing he'd made, and I'd remember, We were already enough. We were building something real, even if it was just the two of us. Jason stayed gone for a while. Every few months, he'd pop back into our lives, usually when it was convenient for him. Birthdays, holidays, days when he needed to look like a good dad for somebody else's benefit. Each time, Liam would light up at the sight of him, and each time Jason left again, a little more of that light dimmed. I never badmouthed Jason to Liam, not once. Even when I wanted to scream at the injustice of it, I smiled and said, "Your dad loves you in his own way." Because I refused to make my son carry the weight of Jason's failures. Then came Brittany. I heard about her before I met her. She was everything Jason liked, pretty, young, and easy to impress. When he brought her around for the first time, it was like she was putting on a show, treating Liam like a prop she could use to win over Jason's parents. It didn't take long for the comments to start. Little digs at me, slipped into casual conversation, questions about Liam's looks, his manners, his genius little brain, said with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it didn't matter what she thought. But then Jason's mother, Linda, started joining in. And suddenly, it wasn't just Brittany's snide remarks. It was Jason's whole family whispering behind my back, picking apart my life, my parenting, my son, sowing seeds of doubt wherever they could. And Jason? He just stood there, smiling, letting it happen. I told myself I wouldn't let them get under my skin. I told myself they couldn't touch what Liam and I had built. But when they invited us to that family barbecue, when they insisted we come for Liam's sake, I knew deep down it wasn't about family at all. It was about control. It was about humiliation. Still, I went, for Liam. Because despite everything, he deserved the chance to know his roots. He deserved the chance to believe the best in people, even if they didn't deserve it. And as I stood there that afternoon, under the weight of their stares and their laughter, watching Liam play on the grass with the innocence only a child can have, I promised myself one thing. Whatever they threw at me, however small they tried to make me feel, they would never take away my son's truth. They would never take away our story. I just didn't know yet that Liam was carrying a piece of that truth with him. A truth so powerful it would shatter every lie they tried to build. And it all started with a simple, crumpled letter, tucked away in his tiny pocket. The afternoon air felt heavy, like it was pressing down on my chest. I stood near the patio, watching Liam run across the yard with a red plastic ball in his hands, his laughter cutting through the low buzz of conversation around me. I clutched my lemonade a little tighter and tried to smile, tried to convince myself that we could get through this barbecue without any drama. For Liam, always for Liam. I caught snippets of conversations. Brittany laughing too loud, Linda's sharp little comments disguised as polite small talk. Jason was somewhere near the grill, flipping burgers and pretending he didn't see the side eyes Brittany and his mother were throwing my way. And then it happened. Right as Liam came back toward the patio, cheeks flushed from playing, Linda leaned into Brittany, not even bothering to lower her voice. "You know," she said, her words dripping with fake concern, "Alara can't even prove that boy is Jason's. I mean, just look at him." Brittany burst into one of those shrill, mean laughs that sliced right through the air. She tossed her perfectly curled hair over her shoulder and said, "He's way too smart for her. I mean, come on, it's obvious." My heart stopped. Time slowed. I could hear the clink of a fork against a plate, the buzz of a bee somewhere near the garden, every tiny sound except the pounding of my own heart in my ears. I turned toward them, my face burning. Jason was right there. He heard it. And still, he didn't say a word, not even a glance in my direction. He just stood there, flipping a burger like none of it was happening. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. How do you even defend yourself against something so cruel, so ridiculous? And Liam, sweet, bright-eyed Liam, stood there, frozen, looking up at me. He didn't understand the full weight of what was being said, not yet, but he knew enough to know it wasn't good. He knew enough to know they were hurting his mom. I felt a deep, primal fury rise up in me, but I swallowed it. I had to stay calm. For him, that's when I saw it. A flash of movement by my side. Liam was reaching into the pocket of his jeans, pulling out a wrinkled, battered envelope. His hand shook slightly as he held it out toward me. His voice was small, but it carried enough power to cut through the entire backyard full of fake smiles and poisoned words. "Mom," he said, his bottom lip trembling, "Dad told me to give this to you. Well, when they started lying again, the world stopped moving. Every laugh, every whispered insult, every judgmental glance, gone. It was just me and Liam, and the letter he was trusting me with." I knelt down to his level, taking the envelope gently from his hand. I could see the worry in his eyes, the fear that maybe he had done something wrong, so I smiled, even though my heart felt like it might split open. "You did perfect, buddy," I whispered. When I stood back up, I could feel the weight of a dozen eyes on me. Linda's smirk faltered. Brittany shifted uncomfortably, glancing around as if looking for a quick exit. Jason, he looked down at his shoes, pretending he wasn't hearing any of it, just like he always did. I took a breath, feeling the worn edges of the envelope between my fingers. My hands were shaking now too, but not from fear, from anger, from love, from the fierce need to defend my son against people who should have been protecting him instead of tearing him down. I knew whatever was inside this letter, Jason had meant for it to stay hidden. He never expected Liam to be brave enough to carry it, to deliver it right into the heart of the storm. And that courage, that unbreakable spirit, came from me. I glanced around at the faces staring back at me, some smug, some worried, some pretending to be innocent. They thought they could shame me. They thought they could question the bond between a mother and her son, as if biology was the only thing that mattered, as if love wasn't real enough, strong enough. They had no idea what was coming. I slipped my finger under the flap of the envelope, tore it open carefully, and pulled out the letter inside. Jason's familiar, messy handwriting sprawled across the page. My heart hammered against my ribs as I began to read, not just for myself, not just for Liam, but for the truth. And the truth, oh, the truth was about to blow the entire lie apart. The letter felt heavier than paper should feel. It was thin, maybe only a page or two, but in my hands it weighed 1,000 pounds. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The backyard seemed to fade away, the chattering, the clinking of plates, even the way Linda was whispering to Brittany like two gossiping schoolgirls. None of it mattered. There was only the letter. And my son, standing so close to me, I could feel the warmth radiating off his small body, looking up with hope and fear tangled together in his eyes. I knew I had a choice right then. I could fold the letter back up, tuck it into my purse, and pretend this never happened. Keep the peace, save face. Walk away without causing a scene, like I had done too many times before. Or I could read it, out loud, for everyone to hear. The old Ilara, the one who spent years biting her tongue, putting others' comfort before her own pain, wanted to stay quiet. But looking at Liam, standing there so brave, my heart knew there was only one way forward. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was fighting for him. For every time someone whispered behind his back, for every time someone tried to make him feel like he didn't belong, for every little piece of dignity they tried to rip away from us. I squeezed Liam's shoulder gently, a silent thank you for his courage. He gave me a tiny nod, like he understood everything I was about to do. I turned back to the crowd gathered around the patio. Linda, pretending to look busy straightening a tray of buns. Brittany, fidgeting with her bracelet, suddenly fascinated by her own nails. Jason, standing stiffly, his face a blank wall of guilt and cowardice. Cleared my throat and unfolded the letter, my voice steady even though my hands still trembled. "This is a letter from Jason Carter," I said, making sure my voice carried. "Written to our son, Liam, shortly after he was born." The words felt powerful just saying them. I could see Brittany freeze mid-fidget. Linda stopped pretending not to listen. And then I began to read. "Liam, I don't know if I'll ever be brave enough to say this out loud to you, but I need you to know that you are mine. Every part of you, from your stubborn smile to your brilliant little mind, is a reflection of everything good I see in this world." My voice cracked for a second, but I pushed through it, gripping the letter tighter. I made mistakes. Big ones. I left when I should have stayed. I doubted myself when I should have been strong. But never, not for 1 second, did I doubt that you were my son. The air around me shifted. The backyard was silent except for the faint creak of someone shifting uncomfortably in their chair. I glanced up. Linda's face was pale. Brittany's arms were crossed so tight across her chest, she looked like she might snap in half. Jason. He wasn't even pretending anymore. His head was down, his shoulders hunched, his hands shoved deep into his pockets like he could disappear into the ground. I went back to the letter. If anyone ever makes you feel like you don't belong or questions who you are, know this: you are my son. Nothing anyone says can change that. And you come from a mother who is stronger than any lie they can tell. Tears blurred my vision, but I kept reading, my voice growing stronger with every word. You are loved, Liam. Always. No matter what. When I finished, I folded the letter carefully, almost reverently. I tucked it into my pocket, feeling like I had just put down a sword after a long, brutal battle. No one said a word. Not Linda, not Brittany, not even Jason. I looked at Liam. His little face was glowing with pride. He threw his arms around my waist and hugged me tightly, and I knelt down to hold him right there in the middle of the patio. For the first time in what felt like years, I didn't care what they thought. I didn't care about their opinions, their whispers, their judgment. I had the truth. I had my son, and nothing they could say would ever take that away from us. As I stood back up, still holding Liam's hand tightly in mine, I realized something. This wasn't just a barbecue. It wasn't just a petty argument. It was a battlefield, and we had just won. Not because Jason admitted anything, not because they apologized, but because Liam knew, without a shadow of a doubt, that he was wanted, he was loved, and he was enough. And no one, not even Jason's family, could rewrite that truth. When I finished reading the letter, I looked up, and for a moment, no one moved. The backyard that had been so loud a few minutes ago, filled with laughter and casual cruelty, was now completely still. You could have heard a pin drop. Jason's parents, Linda and Frank, stared at me like they'd just seen a ghost. Linda clutched her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Frank shifted uncomfortably, pretending to check his watch, desperate for an excuse to be anywhere but here. Brittany, the queen of smug smiles and whispered insults, suddenly had nothing to say. Her cheeks flushed a deep, angry red, and she glanced at Jason like maybe he would save her. He didn't. Jason stood there, frozen, staring at the ground like he could wish himself invisible. Not once did he meet my eyes. Not once did he even look at Liam. The silence stretched longer and longer, suffocating, until finally I heard a soft voice. Liam's. Is it true, Mom? His eyes were wide, shining, waiting for the confirmation he needed. I dropped down to one knee so I could look him right in the eyes. I rested both my hands on his small shoulders and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Yes, baby, it's all true. You are so loved. You have always been enough." He smiled then. That brilliant, pure smile only kids can pull off, and threw his arms around my neck. I squeezed him tight, feeling the knot that had been sitting in my chest for years start to loosen. Across the patio, Linda cleared her throat, struggling to regain control of the situation. "Well," she said stiffly, "maybe we all overreacted. It's not like anyone's perfect." Her voice was high and defensive, a poor attempt at smoothing over what had just happened, but it was too late. Everyone saw it now, the truth. Not just the truth of Liam's paternity, the truth of who they really were. People so small, so mean, they would rather tear down a child than admit their own pride. I stood up, still holding Liam's hand. I could have fought back. I could have screamed, thrown every insult back at them, but I didn't need to, because nothing I could say would be louder than what they had already shown about themselves. Jason finally lifted his head. Our eyes met, and for the first time, there was no warmth, no regret, no lingering hope, only emptiness, only the cold realization that we were strangers now. He opened his mouth, maybe to apologize, maybe to make some excuse, but I didn't give him the chance. "Come on, sweetheart," I said to Liam, squeezing his hand. "Let's go home." We walked away from that backyard, from the judgments, from the lies, and I didn't look back. As we reached the car, I glanced down at Liam. He was humming to himself, swinging our joined hands between us like he hadn't just dismantled an entire wall of hate with nothing but a crumpled letter and the truth. I buckled him into his seat, kissed the top of his head, and just stood there for a moment, letting the afternoon sun warm my face. This was it. The moment I had been fighting for without even knowing it. Not just proving a point to Jason's family, not just surviving their cruelty, but showing Liam, and myself, that we didn't need their approval. We didn't need their love. We already had everything we needed. Driving home, Liam chatted about the bugs he had seen in the backyard and whether we could stop for ice cream. He was already moving forward, already leaving the ugliness behind. And as I listened to him, I realized so was I. We were free, truly free. Not because Jason's family believed us, I didn't care if they ever did, but because Liam believed. He believed in himself, in me, in the unshakable bond between us that no lie, no doubt, no whispered insult could ever break. When we got home, I tucked the letter into a little box on my nightstand, a box where I kept the things most precious to me. I didn't need to read it again. I didn't need proof. But one day when Liam was older, if he ever doubted again, if the world ever tried to convince him he wasn't enough, I would show him that letter, and I would remind him he was always chosen, always loved, always enough. After that day, something shifted inside me. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It wasn't the kind of change that announces itself with fireworks. It was quiet, steady, unshakable. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was fighting to prove something. I didn't feel like I had to shrink myself down to make anyone else comfortable. I didn't feel like I had to explain my family or my son or myself to anyone who didn't deserve to know us. Jason's family never brought up the DNA lie again. There were no more snide comments, no more pointed looks. Not because they suddenly believed in us, but because the truth had stripped away every excuse they had to be cruel. They tried to smooth things over in little ways. An extra gift for Liam on his birthday, an invitation to another family gathering, empty gestures that I politely but firmly turned down. Because once you see people for who they truly are, you can't unsee it. You can't build a bridge from lies and pretend it's strong enough to hold real love. Jason stayed distant after that day. He still sent birthday cards, still showed up sometimes when it was convenient. But the part of me that used to ache for him to be a better father, that part was gone. I realized I couldn't make Jason be the man Liam deserved, but I could be the mother Liam needed. I could be the safe place he always came home to. And the truth is, Liam didn't miss what he never really had. He was too busy living, too busy growing into the kind of boy who made everyone around him better just by being himself. He's 9 now, still smart, still kind, still full of 1,000 questions about the world, still carrying that unshakable spark in his eyes. And sometimes, when I watch him curled up on the couch with a book that's too big for his lap, or when I hear him laughing from the backyard with my brother Caleb, I feel this fierce, overwhelming gratitude. Gratitude that life didn't go the way I thought it would. Gratitude that Jason walked away when he did. Gratitude that we had to fight so hard, because the fight taught us exactly who we are. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not bitter. I'm proud. Proud of the woman I became when everything fell apart. Proud of the boy who never let their lies dim his light. Proud of the life we built. Messy, imperfect, beautiful. People always say family is everything. But what they forget to say is, family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who shows up. Family is who stands with you when the world tries to tear you down. Family is who tells you the truth, even when it's hard. Family is who loves you loud enough to drown out every ugly whisper. Liam and I, we are a family. No permission needed, no approval required. And if there's anything I've learned, anything I want Liam to carry with him for the rest of his life, it's this. You don't have to prove your worth to anyone. You don't have to shrink yourself to fit someone else's small idea of who you should be. You are already enough, exactly as you are. Brave, brilliant, loved, enough. So when people doubt you, when they try to tear you down or make you question your own truth, hold your head high, look them right in the eye, And remember, you don't owe them your pain. You don't owe them your story. You owe yourself your freedom. The letter Liam carried that day was more than just proof. It was a torch that burned through every lie, every doubt, every attempt to make us feel less than whole. And we'll carry that light with us, always, because the world doesn't get to define our family. We do. And standing here today, I can tell you, our family is stronger, brighter, and more beautiful than any lie they ever told. If this story touched you, if you believe that real family is built on love, not just blood, then please take a second to like this video. It helps more people hear stories like ours. And if you have a story of your own about choosing love over lies, I'd love to hear it. Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and it means more to me than you know. Share this video with someone who might need a reminder today that they are enough, just as they are. And if you want more true, powerful stories about resilience, family, and finding your voice, hit that subscribe button and join our little community. I'd love to have you here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing. And remember, your truth matters.